At Christmas dinner, my sister-in-law handed me a gift. I opened it and froze. Inside was a divorce packet, already signed by my husband. She smirked. He belongs with me. My husband said nothing. I smiled. Then you'll love my gift. When she opened it, she screamed. My husband, Ryan, and I had been married for 8 years. I thought we were happy. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but nothing that made me think divorce was even on the table. I trusted him. I thought we were building a future together. His sister, Sophie, had always been around. Too much, honestly. She and Ryan had always been close. She was his childhood best friend before I even met him, and she never really liked me. She had this way of inserting herself into everything, our date nights, our vacations, even our fights. But I never thought much of it. I should have. That night, we were all sitting in the living room after dinner, exchanging gifts. Everything was normal. Or at least, it felt that way. Then Sophie handed me a beautifully wrapped box and smiled. "Open it," she said, her voice dripping with something I couldn't quite place. So I did. Inside was a stack of papers. At first, I couldn't even process what I was looking at. My brain refused to make sense of it. Then I saw Ryan's signature. It was a divorce packet. Already signed. I stared at it, my heart pounding. My hands started to shake. I looked up at Ryan. He didn't say a word. He just sat there, staring at the floor. I turned to Sophie. She was smirking. That's when she said it. "He belongs with me." The room fell silent. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I looked at my in-laws. My mother-in-law's mouth was slightly open, eyes darting between us. My father-in-law just shook his head and let out a sigh. Ryan still wouldn't look at me. He just sat there, his jaw clenched. It felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. My mind was racing, but I forced myself to stay calm. I looked at Sophie, right in the eye, and I smiled. "Then you'll love my gift," I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila envelope. Sophie's smirk faltered. She hesitated before taking it. I could see the curiosity in her eyes, the slight flicker of fear. She opened it. She barely made it past the first page before she screamed. And that's when everything exploded. Sophie's scream wasn't just shock. It was fear. Pure, raw fear. The moment the sound left her lips, she clamped her hand over her mouth, like she was trying to shove it back in. But it was too late. Everyone was staring. Ryan shot up from his chair. "What did you do?" His voice was sharp, but there was something else in it. Panic. Sophie flipped through the papers like they might change if she looked at them fast enough. Her hands trembled. Her breathing was uneven. I didn't say a word. I just watched. Sophie turned to Ryan, eyes wild. "You told me you fixed it." "Fixed what?" My mother-in-law stood up slowly. "What's going on?" No one answered. Ryan snatched the papers from Sophie's hands. The moment he saw what was inside, his face lost all color. Good. Because inside that envelope wasn't just proof of their affair. That was only the beginning. I knew something was wrong before I had any proof. Ryan had been distant for months. Coming home late. Guarding his phone like it held nuclear codes. It wasn't just work stress. It wasn't just needing space. Something was off. And then there was Sophie. She had always been around too much, but lately it was different. She was smug. She would give me these little smiles, like she knew something I didn't. It made my skin crawl. So I started looking. At first, I just checked his phone when he was asleep. Nothing. Then I went through our shared bank accounts. That's where I found it. Money. Thousands of dollars. Draining out. At first, I thought maybe he was gambling. Or hiding an affair with some other woman. But then I saw the transactions. Payments to Sophie. I felt sick. I dug deeper. Hired a private investigator. And what he found made my stomach turn. Ryan wasn't just cheating on me with Sophie. He was stealing from me. I own a small boutique marketing firm. It's my life's work. I built it from nothing. And Ryan? He had been forging my signature on business documents. Transferring money out of our joint savings. Taking loans in my name. Sophie was helping him. They were planning to take everything. They had already signed the lease on a new condo in Miami. Paid for with my money. I sat in my office, staring at the papers, feeling like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I got to work. Ryan was still holding the papers. His hands were shaking. Sophie looked like she wanted to vanish into the floor. I crossed my legs and leaned back. "You should keep reading." He did. And his eyes went wide. Because on the next page was a legal notice from my lawyer. I was suing them both. For fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. I had all the proof. Ryan's fake signatures. The stolen money. The property lease. Everything. My mother-in-law snatched the papers from his hands, scanning them. Her face twisted in confusion. Then horror. then rage. She turned to Sophie. Tell me this isn't true. Sophie didn't answer. Ryan finally found his voice. You can't do this. We're married. That money is, I cut him off. No, Ryan. My money. My business. My name. You stole from me. My voice was calm, controlled. But inside, I was burning. Ryan shook his head, like he could somehow undo everything. We can fix this. I laughed. Oh, you already tried. But see, I got there first. Because while they were sneaking around behind my back, I was moving ahead of them. I had already emptied our joint bank accounts, froze the credit cards, sold the house. They had nothing. Ryan stepped forward, his voice dropping. Let's talk about this privately. No. No more secrets. No more whispers. They had made this public. They wanted to humiliate me? Fine. Now it was their turn. I pulled out my final card. A USB drive. I handed it to my father-in-law. Plug it in. Sophie let out a strangled no, but it was too late. The TV lit up. And suddenly, the whole family was watching security footage from a hotel lobby. Ryan, Sophie, kissing, holding hands, walking into a room together. My mother-in-law gasped. My father-in-law's face turned red. Sophie covered her mouth. Ryan just stood there, frozen. I stared at them both. Merry Christmas. Sophie's scream was sharp, raw, like she had just been stabbed. Ryan turned to her, panicked. What is it? She didn't answer. She just clutched the papers like she could make them disappear if she squeezed hard enough. The whole room was dead silent. The only sound was the fireplace crackling. Ryan grabbed the papers from her hands, scanning through them. His face went pale. Where the hell did you get this? I tilted my head, smiling. I don't think that's the question you should be asking. Ryan's hands were shaking as he flipped to the next page. That's when the real panic set in. Because it wasn't just the fraud charges. It wasn't just the stolen money. There was an arrest warrant attached. I had spent weeks gathering evidence. My PI had done his job well. There were bank records, transaction logs, and even surveillance footage. But there was one thing I hadn't expected to find. Sophie and Ryan weren't just stealing from me. They were laundering money. Apparently, Ryan had gotten in deep with a shady real estate deal. Something about flipping properties with unreported cash. At first, I thought it was just him. But Sophie's name was on some of the contracts, too. And that's when it hit me. They weren't just screwing me over. They were breaking the law. So I made a phone call. To the IRS. Ryan took a step back, shaking his head. This isn't real. This isn't real. Sophie looked like she was about to pass out. You wouldn't. I leaned forward. Oh, but I did. My father-in-law grabbed the papers from Ryan's hands, reading through them. His face hardened. My mother-in-law gasped. What the hell is this? Ryan bolted for the door. That's when the sirens started. I had met with a lawyer. Told them everything. By the time we were done, my case wasn't just civil, it was criminal. Turns out, when you forge someone's name on business documents, banks don't like that. Neither do the feds. So I gave them everything. Every bank transaction, every fake signature, every contract. And they took it very seriously. They told me Ryan and Sophie were already under investigation. My evidence? It was the missing piece they needed. And then came the kicker. The lawyer looked at me and said, if this goes forward, your husband could be facing jail time. I smiled. Good. Red and blue lights flashed through the window. Ryan froze. Sophie let out a choked sob. My mother-in-law put a shaking hand over her mouth. No, this can't be happening. Ryan turned to me, desperate now. Please, we can fix this. I stood up, grabbing my coat. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. The cops knocked on the door. Sophie collapsed to the floor, crying. Ryan? He turned to run. Big mistake. The knock at the door echoed through the house, slicing through the tense silence. Ryan stood frozen. Sophie's breath came in ragged gasps. My mother-in-law clutched her chest like she might faint. My father-in-law's face was unreadable, but his jaw was clenched so tightly I thought he might break a tooth. Another knock. This time, a voice followed. Charleston PD, open the door. I turned to Ryan, arms crossed. Are you going to get that, or should I? For the first time, Ryan looked afraid. Sophie shot to her feet, gripping his arm. You promised me this wouldn't happen. Her voice cracked. Ryan shook her off. Shut up, Sophie. That was a mistake. Her face twisted into something ugly. She let out a sharp laugh, wild and unhinged. Oh, don't you dare act like this is all on me. My father-in-law stepped between them. Someone better start explaining. No one moved. No one spoke. So I did it for them. Ryan and Sophie have been sleeping together. Gasps rippled through the room. Ryan flinched like I had slapped him. My mother-in-law's knees buckled. No, that can't be true. She turned to Sophie, almost pleading. Tell me that's not true. Sophie didn't answer. She just lowered her head, shoulders shaking. That was all the confirmation she needed. My mother-in-law sobbed. You were family, Sophie. You were his sister-in-law. Sophie whispered something, too quiet to hear. I stepped closer. Speak up. She lifted her head, eyes burning with hatred. I've always loved him. A sick, twisted confession. The room felt like it was closing in. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, pacing. He was panicking now, eyes darting toward the door. This isn't the time for this. I cut him off. Oh, I think this is exactly the time. Because I wasn't done. Ryan didn't just cheat. He stole from me. He laundered money. He put everything in MY name and thought he could just disappear and start over. I turned to Sophie. With you. My father-in-law looked disgusted. The knocking at the door became more insistent. I walked over and opened it. 2 officers stood there. Ryan Carter? Ryan turned white. The officers stepped inside. Mr. Carter, we have a warrant for your arrest. You're being charged with fraud, identity theft, and financial misconduct. Ryan bolted. He barely made it past the hallway before one of the officers tackled him to the ground. Sophie screamed, scrambling after them. Stop. You don't understand. This is her fault. I let out a laugh. A full, genuine laugh. Oh, this should be good. Sophie turned on me, her face red, streaked with tears. You're the reason he had to do this. You never made him happy. You were selfish. You slap. My mother-in-law's hand connected with Sophie's face so hard that it echoed. Everyone froze. Sophie stumbled back, stunned. My mother-in-law's chest heaved. Her face was wet with tears. How dare you? Her voice shook with pure rage. How dare you stand here in my house and act like you're the victim? Sophie whimpered. But I shut up. That came from my father-in-law. His voice was dangerous. He turned to Ryan, who was now being handcuffed. You're no longer my son. Ryan snapped. Oh, please. He barked out a bitter laugh. Spare me the dramatics, Dad. You never gave a damn about me. Not really. His father's eyes darkened. You did this to yourself. Ryan looked around desperately. Mom? Please. She shook her head, crying. I don't know who you are anymore. The officers started leading Ryan toward the door. And that's when Sophie lost it. She lunged at me. This is your fault. You ruined everything. I stepped aside, letting her fall flat on her face. No, Sophie. I just made sure you paid for it. One of the officers grabbed her arms, pulling her up. She's not under arrest, but I'd suggest she leaves before she makes things worse for herself. Sophie tried to shake them off, sobbing. Ryan, tell them it was all her fault. Ryan. But Ryan wasn't looking at her anymore. He just stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. He wasn't going to save her. Ryan was taken away in the back of a police car. Sophie collapsed on the couch, wailing, but no one comforted her. I turned to my in-laws. My mother-in-law wiped her face. Her eyes were swollen. I'm so sorry. I nodded. I wasn't mad at them. They were just as blindsided as I was. I grabbed my coat. I should go. Sophie laughed bitterly from the couch. Yeah, run away. Just like always. I walked over to her, crouching down so only she could hear. I won. Her face crumpled. I walked out, leaving her in her misery. Ryan took a plea deal. Got 5 years in prison. Sophie tried to fight me in court, but she had nothing. She lost everything. I sold the house. Moved to New York. My business? Better than ever. And for the first time in years? I was happy.